Hi, team. Welcome to 10 Talks. Today's conversation is all about winning well-being, and we're doing it with gut health. And what a gift for us to be able to really own our gut health and think of it as really that competitive advantage that we can have when we're setting us up for just living our best life and going for it, having the energy, the mindset, the clear brain, the belief that we've got this. And just the power of our choices for what they're doing to our mind, what they're doing to our body, our spirit, our heart, our engagement. And so today's going to be all about really that gut health nutrition. Now, yes, the whole world is talking about nutrition. We've done lots of segments on nutrition. What's different about this? Well, it's specific to how do you really feed your gut so that it can feed into the lifestyle that you want and that your choices can really set you up to have your gut winning that battle of just the battle between kind of good and evil. What's happening in there, and are we set up to be able to be for us in such a great way? And I want to start with just some winning strategies that's really about healthy eating is really about making us feel healthy. So when you feel like, oh, do I have to make a healthy choice or do I really just want kind of that junk food? Well, do I want to be healthy and do I want to feel good? So I want to start with the power of that choice. Healthy eating creates my healthy life. And Dr. Hunter, thank you for being on our team and really being on our support team to coach us up from a medical perspective and from a lifestyle science. How do we really win this challenge of nutrition and gut health? So I want to start with really the pre-probiotics and what that does for us. We hear so much about it, but when I'm thinking about healthy eating equals a healthy life, that's where I want to start.
Yeah, so we know that we make over 220 food choices a day, right? And it starts with what do I put in my coffee in the morning, and goes on from there. And when we're really choosing food for gut health, it's all about whole foods. And whole foods, we think about as close as it came off the animal or plant as we can get it. And I really like to focus on those whole food, plant focused options. So when we talk about reducing processed food, it means we're choosing foods really in the more natural form, whole grains, fruits and veggies, plant protein. And when we access those things, we're getting fiber, really our powerhouse for the health of the microbiome. Our bodies, our upper digestive tract does not digest fiber.
Hmm.
It's really food for the microbiome. And not only do they consume it for energy, but they also make a lot of things from the fiber in our diets. And you touched a little bit on prebiotics there. We've talked about probiotics, which are other microorganisms that we're consuming to try to kind of refresh the microbiome and add to it. Prebiotics really are specific types of foods that are very high in fiber, that is, again, undigestible and really important for the health of the microbiome. So when we think about those, it's things like nuts, things like legumes, which are lentils and chickpeas and the beans, things like whole grains. Certain fruits and vegetables have very high prebiotics. So, really thinking about how do we work these in every day, in every meal or snack? How am I having something that's going to support my gut health? That's the winning strategy.
So, team, I want you to kind of keeping a scoreboard going for you to determine if you're winning your gut health and be able with every choice you make, thinking about, is this for me? Is this for my gut? Would this really set me up to win my day? Or is this an emotional response? Is this something that I'm just doing out of a bad habit that I don't really know what to reach for? Well, Dr. Hunter and I are committed to coaching you up on that so that you can make different choices and really create and make a whole different life. And when we think about just these choices of healthy eating and healthy choices, I want to talk about the power of food and energy and what I need to really be able to put in my mouth to have my mood be happy and me be productive and really high performing.
Yeah, a lot of the emotional energy around eating is we're looking for nutrition, and a lot of the food we eat doesn't have it. Highly processed food, it's mostly readily accessible carbohydrates from sugar. And, we crave sugar. We didn't have it evolutionarily all the time. But when we get it in that form, it really causes that blood sugar
Mm.
spike and crash. So that's why so many people, have the donut and then are sleeping at their desk by 10 a.m. When we eat more of a whole food diet, it's not readily digestible in that upper part of the GI tract, like we talked about. So, yes, you're going to be absorbing nutrition. You're going to get some calories from it, but it's going to make you feel full longer because it slows down digestion. And you're not going to have the crash and spike because there's so much less carbohydrates getting easily digested in that upper GI tract. And then that fiber makes its way down to the colon where it feeds the microbiome. And again, they don't just eat the fiber and that's it. It helps to build up that mucus layer in the gut that we talked about, which we know is so important for our immune system and reducing inflammation. And then the gut makes other substances from the fiber, like short chain fatty acids, which we know that are actually important for our brain health. We've talked about this gut brain axis before. It helps us feel full. Um, helps with that production of serotonin that we're looking for in the gut to help us sustain our mood. When you choose less processed, you're supporting the health of the gut, which is then feeding into all of these other systems that really help us achieve peak performance, right? If you can be awake at 3 p.m. when everyone else is snoozing, or improve gut health helps with your sleep, right? It's all feeds in together and it starts with the nutrition.
So when I reach for fiber, what am I putting in my hands and then putting in my mouth?
Yeah, it has lots of different forms, right? Most of them in the plant kingdom. We actually can only get fiber from plants. So think about if you're wanting a snack, can you grab your apple, maybe add in some nut butter, right? Whenever we pair fiber and protein and fat, that's kind of the winning strategy for really fueling for performance and feeling full, staying full. It's just really a perfect equation for that optimal digestion and really using those tools for us. So I love an apple and nut butter in the afternoon when I'm craving a snack. What about carrots and hummus or, celery sticks? Getting that plant protein, which is also going to have a lot of fiber in it for you, plus a serving of veggies, another winning strategy. Nuts are a great snack. You get their prebiotic, you get the fat, you get the protein. It's all super healthy for you. It's going to feed the health of the microbiome as well.
So I'm choosing fiber and I want to move into choosing healthy fats. So when we go for adding that winning combination of healthy fats, protein, and fiber, what are we reaching for from a healthy fat perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the nuts definitely win in that category. Um, I love avocado. Some people are pretty polarized on this. I didn't realize it was possible to not like avocado because I love it so much. But it's another really healthy fat. It is that unsaturated fat. Um, Avocados are also very high in soluble fiber, so you get both together. You can get fiber and fat, and then you get to add your protein, right? Um, and thinking about, plant foods are often lower in fat, so you can have your beans, add protein without adding unhealthy fat. We get most of our saturated fat from cheese, actually, in this country, but from animal products. And that's really thinking about the unhealthy fats. Coconut oil is one of those fats that it's kind of in small portions that I would recommend. It's a little bit more saturated. And when you're cooking, something like avocado oil to saute and stir fry is a good option because it's a high heat oil. Coconut oil is as well. I would recommend it in baking as if you would use butter. But, a lot of people, we've gotten to this craze of cooking with olive oil,
Mhm.
and olive oil actually has a really low smoke point. So it is actually oxidizing and can be harmful when we're cooking with it. So olive oil is really more for dressing or topping your foods, and something like an avocado oil for sauteing and stir frying. And again, in the smallest amounts you need. You don't need a lot to cook a meal.
Well, and so we know that we're going for fiber. We know that we want healthy fats. And let's talk now just about loading up on those fruits and vegetables. So many people think about that plant based diet or that plant based lifestyle. how am I going to bulk up? How am I going to really have the strength to get out and work out and to do the things that I want to do, that peak performance level? We know there's been lots of studies out there about it. We know that it can happen. And so take us through just that mindset that I can still win when I'm really making sure that my gut and my diet are winning through fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, I actually had a really interesting conversation recently on this point, and the person I was speaking to said, "Well, what does the silverback gorilla eat?" And they eat 90% fruit.
Wow.
They have no problem getting to a fighting weight, right? So it's all about consistency, and I would say variety as well. We always, or I previously thought of eggs kind of as the perfect protein, right? Eggs are a high protein food. Well, one egg has about 6 grams of protein, and 1 cup of red lentils has 18 grams of protein. So you can kind of do the math, right? And plant foods, especially when you're thinking about nuts, legumes, again, lentils, chickpeas, beans, mushrooms, another really high source of protein in the plant kingdom, soy, those are going to be the things I want you to think about incorporating in. Also, our whole grains are great sources of protein. When we process those whole grains, so brown rice is rice, we make it white rice. It's not only taking away the fiber, that outer covering, but it's taking away the protein and the healthy fat in the rice too. And all that's left is the carbohydrate.
Mm.
So you're going to get higher protein as well as the helpful fiber when you choose whole grains. I mean, think about quinoa. What a powerhouse for protein there. So you're probably not going to meet your protein needs if you eat the same 3 plant foods every day, right? You're really going to have to get creative, add to that variety, and make sure you're having multiple servings of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and lean into those legumes, nuts, mushrooms, other sources of plant protein.
I want to talk about doing the math because so much in high performance is about our stats and being able to really see from a scoreboard perspective, am I winning? Is this working? And how would we know that our stats, or how do we know that our gut, that we're winning our gut health? What are going to be actually the way we're feeling, the way we're able to kind of show up in life as a win?
Yeah, I think what you will start to notice as you choose less processed food, more whole foods, more fruits and vegetables is one, your cravings are probably going to change. You're going to start craving that apple instead of the Snickers bar at 3 p.m. because you've changed the makeup of the microbiome. We are selecting a certain type of bacteria when we eat processed food that thrive on that, right? Those bugs that crave cheap fat and sugar, that's what they eat. If you don't feed them that, they die. And you select a different type of bacteria that thrive on that. So the cravings changing might be the first thing you notice. You also might notice, oh, I drink more water. I'm feeling better. I'm sleeping deeper. I have less aches and pains. I spoke to someone recently who finally made the leap to cutting out dairy, and she was amazed how much her workouts changed. She had a lot less muscle pain after workouts. She had a lot less joint pain. And again, dairy kind of hits on that high list of inflammatory foods for me. So when you can choose foods that reduce inflammation, that support our immune system, right? Do you get sick less often? That's one of those things we don't necessarily think tied to gut health, but a lot of our immune system resides in the gut. And when we have poor gut health, that immune system gets exposed to more things than it normally was. It kind of goes on high alert or is weakened, right? Not working the way it should. So again, it's so interesting to me and I love it because it hits those 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. And maybe we put the gut right in the center. It's the center of that wheel because anything we do with the nutrition is going to impact the gut for good or for bad, right? Take us in a direction we don't want to go in or towards peak performance and optimal health.
Well, and we've talked about everything we're putting in our mouth. I want to talk about our environment. I want to talk about really our kitchen. Is it set up to where it's really making us reach for the right things and inspire us, motivate us, and encourage us not just to like resist, but more importantly, to really be able to move into a space that inspires and motivates and encourages me to reach for it. So I know some winning strategies are having a bowl of fresh fruit, really have that on the counter. So visually, I see it. I'm stimulated to make great choices. I want to talk about how to organize our kitchen in terms of really setting it up to where it's like a healthy gut gym for us. We know if we want to work out for peak performance, we need certain weights and certain gym equipment. What do we need in our kitchen gym?
Oh, I love this. Um, so one thing I suggest is doing a pantry detox. Going through and finding the candy and the crackers and the cookies and the things that you might reach for, uh, and just getting rid of them, right? I don't like to waste food. I don't like to encourage people to throw food away, but I'd say it's not really food. Don't worry about wasting it. Nobody needs that Halloween candy that's still in the back of your pantry. So, one is just kind of doing a clean sweep and then seeing where you are with what I call, like healthy pantry staples. You want to have stuff on hand that if you haven't done your meal plan, if you haven't gotten to the grocery store, that you could reach in the pantry and in 30 or 45 minutes have a healthy meal from what you have on hand. So the whole grains are great for this, right? You can have a container of brown rice, you can have a container of quinoa. I have a bunch of dried lentils in my pantry. Um, those are things you can throw in a pot with some boiling water, and 20, 30 minutes later, you have a protein packed, high fiber, satisfying meal. Also thinking about our canned foods, I don't think canned foods are really the enemy. You can get a lot of canned beans, have canned tomatoes and things like that on hand again that you can enhance the flavor or make that pot of rice and beans a little more interesting, right? Throw in a jar of salsa, throw in a can of Rotel or something like that. With the thing to think about with canned food is how much salt is going in this actually. It's not sugar with canned food as much as sodium because that's part of the preservation and canning process, but you can find low sodium foods or no salt added canned foods. So, my pantry has diced tomatoes, we've got chickpeas, we've got canned black beans, we've got coconut milk, make a quick curry. Spices are also going to be important because you want to add flavor without having to necessarily add a lot of fat or oil or salt, right? So having garlic powder on hand, cumin on hand, uh, basil, oregano, there's really probably like 8 to 10 spices that with that combination, you can make flavor profiles for kind of a worldwide cuisine and keep it interesting. And then it's really about what fruits and veg am I going to have on hand, right? These things are not things you can just buy once and leave on your
Mhm.
shelf for 2 months and have it be there. But again, if you think about eating through the rainbow, maybe you have some leafy greens in the fridge at all time. Maybe you got apples or tomatoes to fill in your red. You've got your carrots. I love tricolor peppers, right? You can get through all the yellow, green, red,
Mhm.
orange. And there's nothing wrong with kind of pre-prepping and chopping up some of these things. A lot of things like onions and peppers freeze really well. So, if you're going to chop one onion and you've got three in the house, chop all three and then put them into bags in your freezer, and you've got a quick start to a soup or a stew. And for the world of fruit, I love frozen fruit as an option. As we said before, it's picked at the time of ripeness. A lot of people tell me with that fruit bowl, well, Dr. Hunter, I get it. It just, it just goes bad on the counter.
Mhm.
Like, great. Well, take it off the counter, you know, uh, put it in the freezer. So then you can take it out when you need it. You can throw it into your smoothie. I love my kids are notorious for starting an apple and never finishing it. I chop them up, put them in the freezer, and that goes into our oatmeal. So there are just lots of ways that you can incorporate these whole foods in day to day. And part of it, as you said, Carlette, is just having it on hand, having those skills and tools ready to go. But that's where I would start.
So, Dr. Hunter, thank you for the challenge of really detoxing our kitchen so that actually our kitchen gym is set up for us to really be able to reach for great choices. Let's talk about what's on our labels because as we go to do this detox, we may think we've got great things in our kitchen already. And I really appreciate the challenge of be very mindful of number one, what's on the labels, and number two, sugar. Is it hiding with different names and showing up in ways that we're actually leaving this in our counter in our kitchen thinking that it's really good for us and it's not?
Yeah, I love that in 2020, the FDA did a refresh on nutrition labels. Hugely important because the thing that it required food manufacturers to do is list the grams of added sugar. So if an apple had a nutrition label under carbohydrates, it would say, actually, for some apples, as high as 19 grams of sugar. Now, that sounds really high, something maybe we wouldn't want to put in our body. But the next line under that would say includes 0 grams of added sugar. So we know it's just what's there in the product. And when it is a natural sugar, we want to be mindful of servings. We don't want to eat a pound of apples, but it's really how our bodies know how to digest it, right? And the other thing that that apple's nutrition label would say under carbohydrates is grams of fiber. It's quite a few. That, helps to reduce and buffer that sugar content. It would also have some protein. So that's really where I like to draw people's eyes when they're looking at a nutrition label is what is the grams of added sugar? Is this just how nature presented it to us, which is probably going to provide some fiber and protein, or is this just the manufacturer dumping in sugar? And you're right, Carlette. Sugar, you know, most of us think, oh, well, if it says cane sugar, I'm pretty sure like I know what that is. But there's about 20 different names to hide sugar in foods. So, agave sugar, barley, maltose, some of the sugar alcohols, sorbitol. These are all kind of names that they're trying to hide it. They're trying to get it to where people don't think, oh, this is something really sugary. One trick when you actually look at the ingredients on a food label, the order of the ingredient is reflective of its proportion in the food itself. So if the first ingredient is whole wheat flour, that's the biggest proportion. If it's then followed by sugar, right? We want to try to get sugar as far down that label as we can so that it's a smaller proportion. And in my mind, we really want to be eating whole foods. So I want the ingredient list to be really small. If it has more than 5 ingredients or so, you can put it in the processed food section, right? And again, if sugar's in the first three, it's going to have a pretty significant amount of added sugar. So I love food labels where it's one ingredient, right? Whole wheat, red lentils, a bag of frozen blueberries should only say blueberries on that ingredient list, right? So this is how we can use the power of the nutrition label and the ingredient list to really make sure we're choosing whole foods and working on that minimally processed.
So we've gotten coached up on the ability to make great choices and to be able to understand what we need to have in our kitchen, what we need to be able to choose when we get hungry or having a craving. Once we make that choice and we put it in our mouth, what's happening from a digestive system perspective? And also, how can we really just be mindful and find the joy in being able to enjoy this meal that we're about to have or snack?
Yeah, really digestion starts in the mouth, Carlette. So there's enzymes in our saliva that start to break down those carbohydrates as soon as they come in. And actually chewing, really thoroughly chewing your food is so helpful for the health of the microbiome and for our digestion overall. Because when you use your teeth to work for you, you're breaking that food down. It's easier on the system to really process. So I like to think about when we're sitting down for a meal, we can be really mindful about what are the flavors I'm experiencing, right? Uh, how does this am I enjoying the smells? Am I enjoying the good conversation? And if we kind of take the time to slow down, really chew our food, take a breath. Um, an important tool when you think about weight management is like, how many times do you put your fork down during the meal? Because the longer it takes you to eat your food, it helps with your body to kind of recognize, like, hey, I'm full. So this mindfulness around eating is a really important part, and just making sure we're effectively and thoroughly chewing can help aid digestion, support the microbiome. Also, making sure you're getting enough water is an important tool. In lifestyle medicine, we really think our main liquid should be water. Our body, just for digestion, the stomach makes several liters of digestive fluids every day, and our cells are mostly water. So we need to be constantly replenishing that. And especially as we think about, if you're not really eating a whole food, plant focused diet now, and you want to start adding in some fiber and things like that to protect your gut health, you need to add in the water too. Fiber can be good for bulking up our stools, but it also slows down the transit through the GI tract. So some people, when they start eating plant-based or plant-focused, get some constipation. And it's really because the colon is pulling water out as that stool is taking longer to pass. So hydration important for digestion, important for maintenance of gut health and overall performance, right? We know our hydration status can be a main indicator of how well we perform.
When we're thinking about our water intake, if we are having tea
Mhm.
versus water, and yet tea is made from water, is that going to be able to count for the hydration, or does it need to be pure water and then the tea or whatever we add as an addition?
Yeah, I mean, things that are mostly water, like herbal tea that you make at home, you can count that in your liquid intake. Sometimes we think of caffeinated beverages, like especially coffee. It's a little bit of a diuretic, right? It might actually dehydrate a little bit. So if it's uncaffeinated and I would say unsweetened, you can consider it in your hydration category.
We got to go to the grocery store and make some choices constantly to really set us up. How do we shop inside the grocery store so that our brain that may be hungry or emotional eating or certain habits, how do we shop to really win our gut health?
Well, one tip is don't go to the grocery store hungry. If you're like running out and you're gonna buy make a shake or something, grab a granola bar or an apple on your way out the door, because we're much more likely to impulse buy if we're already in that vulnerable state, shall we say. One tip that I love to share with people is just shopping around the periphery of the store. That is where you're going to find the whole foods, even if you hit up the meat and the dairy case, right? I mean, a whole food is technically as close as it came off the plant or the animal as you can get it. So when you think about entering a grocery store, usually it's the produce section. And then, you walk through maybe the bakery and the meats around through seafood and dairy. And then kind of on the edge might be, the whole grains or the kind of dried beans and pastas, canned foods. We kind of want to avoid that middle section because what's in there, right? It's cereal, it's the candy, the chips, the crackers. I would include the freezer section on my tour of the grocery store, though, for the reasons I said. Some of our whole grains and some of those other pantry staples will come pre-cooked and frozen. Brown rice is a great thing that you can buy frozen, or if you're going to make 1 cup of rice, make 4. Put half of it in the freezer, portion the rest out for the rest of the week, right? But I really like the freezer section for some convenience foods. Now, not talking about chicken nuggets, right? I'm talking about whole foods that you can get frozen that increase the convenience for you when you're prepping.
Well, Dr. Hunter, as always, thank you so much for just the conversation of how to win our nutrition so that our gut is set up to really be for us and the power of the choices that we're making. Are we choosing being for us, or we're choosing kind of bad habits or emotional things that our gut is telling us, not the right choice. I want something different. I'm craving something different. Maybe you just haven't known how. Dr. Hunter and I are on your support team. We are here for you to get you coached up so that you really win your gut health. Thank you so much, Dr. Hunter.